Have you ever noticed how two people can make completely different amounts of money, but somehow they're both broke? Or how someone making $40,000 a year can save $10,000 faster than someone making $100,000? It doesn't make sense on paper, but here's the thing nobody talks about. Your income doesn't just change how fast you save money, it changes everything. It changes how you think, what stresses you out, what you're even allowed to dream about. I'm Chris, and I spend way too much time thinking about and studying what separates someone who will make it in the savings game from those who will not. If you're on the path to saving money, hit the like button. It helps my small channel grow. $10,000 is one of those weird numbers that sounds simple but hits different depending on where you're starting from. It's not life-changing money, but it's life-shifting money. It's the difference between a car repair ruining your entire month and just being annoyed for an afternoon. It's the gap between feeling trapped in whatever job you've got and knowing you've got options. And the speed at which you can save it? That reveals way more about your life than you think. I'll break down 3 income levels: $40,000, $65,000, and $100,000 a year. But we're not just doing math. We're going deeper. We're talking about what changes in your actual life at each level, how you think, what you worry about, the choices you get to make. Because saving $10,000 when you're making 40,000 hits completely different than when you're making 100,000. Different speed, different sacrifice, different psychology. Let's get into it. Let's start at $40,000 a year because this is where a lot of people are living right now. After taxes, you're probably taking home somewhere around $30,000, maybe $32,000. That's about $2,500 a month, and that $2,500 has to do everything. Rent, food, gas, insurance, phone, maybe student loans or credit card payments. You're not out here living large. You're living intentional because you have to be. Here's the math. If you save 10% of your take-home pay, which is already pretty aggressive at this income, you're putting away $250 a month. At that rate, you're looking at 40 months to hit $10,000. That's over 3 years. 3 years of consistent saving with zero emergencies, no surprise dental work, no car breaking down, no anything going wrong. But the math is honestly the easy part. The psychology is where it gets heavy. When you're making $40,000 a year, you're in what I call pure survival mode. You're not thinking about building wealth. You're not even thinking about next year. You're thinking about making it to Friday. You're thinking about whether you can afford new tires this month or if you need to pray they last another few weeks. Every single dollar has a job lined up before it even hits your account, and usually there's more jobs than dollars. The mental weight of this is real. You start making every decision based on price, not value. You buy the cheap thing that breaks in 6 months instead of the better thing that lasts 3 years, because you don't have the upfront cash for the better thing. You say no to going out with friends because you genuinely can't afford the $20, and after a while that isolation starts messing with your head. You feel behind, like everyone else got a manual you didn't get. And here's the part that really hurts. At $40,000, unexpected expenses aren't just annoying. They're catastrophic. A $500 car repair doesn't just set you back. It wipes out months of profit. You finally claw your way up to $2,000 saved, something breaks, and boom, you're back at $400. It's like running on a treadmill while someone randomly cranks up the speed and you just have to. But here's what's actually interesting about this level, and most people don't see it. When you're grinding to save at $40,000 a year, you're building something that people at higher incomes don't always develop. You're building real discipline. You're learning the difference between needing something and wanting something. You're getting insanely creative about cutting costs. You're learning to spot value. And when you finally hit that $10,000 mark after 3 or 4 years of pushing through, you're not the same person. You fundamentally rewired how you think. People who save successfully at this income level develop this almost supernatural ability to spot waste. They know where every single dollar goes because they have to. They can smell lifestyle creep from a mile away. And that skill, that awareness, that's a cheat code that stays with you forever, even when your income. Now let's jump to $65,000 a year. This is interesting because $65,000 is right around the median household income for a lot of places in America. It's not rich, it's not poor, it's middle. After taxes, you're probably taking home around $48,000, maybe $50,000. That's about $4,000 a month hitting your account. Here's where things get weird. At $65,000, you're not in survival mode anymore. You can cover your basics. You've got a little but, and this is a massive but, you're in what I call the lifestyle trap zone. You make enough to feel like you should be comfortable, but somehow you're probably still living paycheck to paycheck because your expenses grew right along with your income. The math says if you save 10% at this level, you're putting away $400 a month. You hit $10,000 in 25 months, just over 2 years. Way faster than at 40,000, right? But here's the problem. Most people at 65,000 aren't saving 10%. They're saving like 3%, maybe 5%, because they upgraded their entire... The car got nicer, the apartment got bigger, maybe you moved to a better neighborhood, the vacations got more frequent, the restaurants got fancier, you're not doing anything crazy. You're just living like someone who makes $65,000 is supposed to live, right? And that's the trap. You feel like you should have money left over. You make more than people at 40,000, but somehow it's still tight every month. The stress doesn't go away, it just changes shape. Psychologically, $65,000 is this weird middle zone. You're not poor enough to qualify for help programs, but you're not rich enough to stop worrying. You're stuck in this space where everyone expects you to have your stuff together, but you're secretly stressed about money constantly. One major expense and you're back to zero. The pressure to look successful starts eating at you. You feel like you should be further along by now, like something's wrong with you for not having more. The lifestyle trap at this income is vicious because it's invisible. You're not buying stupid stuff. You're not being irresponsible. You're just living a normal middle-class life, and that normal middle-class life costs $65,000 to maintain. So you're stuck. Can't move down without it feeling like failure. Can't move up without more income. You're trapped in what looks like success from the outside. But here's what changes if you can break out of that trap. $65,000 actually gives you real options that $40,000 just doesn't. You can save faster if you choose to. You can attack debt more aggressively. You can invest in yourself, take courses, build skills that bump your income even higher. The key word is choose. At $40,000, you're mostly just surviving. At $65,000, the people who win at this income level are the ones who resist the upgrade. They keep living like they make $50,000 even though they're bringing in $60,000. They take that extra $15,000 and they weaponize it. They clear debt, they stack savings, they invest, and because they've got more margin to work with, they can actually build momentum. They can hit $10,000 in under 2 years and keep going. They can start thinking about what's next instead of just keeping their head above water. Now let's talk about $100,000 a year. This is where the math starts looking completely different. After taxes, depending on your state and situation, you're probably taking home around $70,000 to $75,000. That's around $6,000 a month landing in your account. At this level, if you save just 10%, you're putting away $600 to $700 a month. You hit $10,000 in about 15 months, a little over a year. And if you actually push it to 15 or 20%, which is totally doable at this income, you could save $10,000 in under a year, maybe 6 to 9 months if you're aggressive. But here's what people don't tell you about making six figures. It doesn't automatically fix everything. I know this sounds crazy, but I know people making $100,000 who are still living paycheck to paycheck. Same reason as the $65,000 crowd, just scaled up. The house is bigger, the cars are nicer, the kids are in expensive schools or activities, the vacations are international, the lifestyle scaled right up to eat the entire income. And there's this psychological trap that's specific to hitting six figures. You feel like you made it. So you spend like you made it. You think, I make $100,000 a year, I should be able to afford this. And yeah, technically you can afford it. But affording something and it being smart are two completely different things. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. The lifestyle creep at $100,000 is sneaky because everything feels reasonable. A $60,000 car, that's normal for someone at your income. A $400,000 house. Actually pretty modest these days. A $200 dinner once a week? You work hard, you deserve it. None of it seems crazy individually, but together it eats everything. You're making $100,000 and somehow still stressed about money, still can't save, still one emergency away from panic. Here's the flip side though, and this is important. At $100,000, if you keep your lifestyle in check, you can build wealth stupid fast. Like ridiculously fast. You can max out retirement accounts. You can build a 6-month emergency fund in less than a year. You can invest in index funds, real estate, start a business. You've got margin to take risks that people at lower incomes just can't take. You can afford to try something, fail. The psychological shift at $100,000 when you do it right is massive. Money stops being this constant source of anxiety and becomes a tool. You stop making decisions based on what you can afford and start making decisions based on what you actually want your life to look like. You can take a pay cut for a job you love because you've got savings backing you up. You can move cities without freaking out. You can help family without destroying your own stability. But, and this is critical, that only happens if you don't let your lifestyle eat your income. The people making $100,000 and feeling broke they're not bad with money. They just built a life that requires $100,000 to maintain, so they can never step off the treadmill. They're stuck at a higher altitude, but they're still stuck. So let's zoom out and look at what this actually means. The speed at which you save $10,000 really comes down to 3 things: income, expenses, and psychology. And honestly, psychology, I've seen people making $40,000 save $10,000 faster than people making $100,000. How? Because the person at $40,000 is locked in. They know they don't have room for error. Every dollar is intentional. They've killed lifestyle creep before it started because they never had a lifestyle to creep. They're operating with clarity. Meanwhile, the person at $100,000 is dealing with all these invisible expenses that feel necessary but aren't. The gym membership they forgot about, the eating out multiple times a week because they're tired and they can afford it. None of it feels like a big deal in the moment, but it adds up to hundreds or thousands a month that could be building actual wealth instead. Here's what shifts at each level psychologically. At $40,000, you're in scarcity mode. Your brain is wired for survival. Every decision feels high stakes. You're constantly anxious about, but if you can save at this level, you're building discipline that's basically unshakable. You're becoming someone who can make hard choices and stick. At $65,000, you're in this awkward middle space. You feel like you should have it together, but you don't. You're caught between wanting to enjoy life now and trying to build security for later. The stress is different than at $40,000, but it's still there, just wearing a nicer shirt. You feel like everyone else figured something out that you missed. At $100,000, if you're doing it right, you shift into abundance thinking. Money is no longer the main constraint. Time becomes more valuable than dollars. You start thinking about the return on investment of your energy and attention, not just your money. But if you're doing it wrong, you're just playing the same broke game on a bigger board with higher stakes. Let's get practical. What does this mean for you right now, wherever you are? First, know your numbers. Track your spending for 1 month. I don't care if you're making $40,000 or $100,000. You need to know where your money is actually going. Not a shame thing, just awareness. You can't fix what you can't see. Second, find your leaks. This is where most people discover savings without changing income at all. Subscriptions you forgot about. Those small impulse purchases that don't feel like anything but add up to $100 or $200 a month. Find them, plug them. Suddenly you've got breathing room without working enough. Third, set a specific target. $10,000 is great, but make it personal. Maybe it's 3 months of expenses. Maybe it's enough to handle a major purchase without debt. Maybe it's your first step toward actual financial independence. Whatever it is, make it real in your head, not just a number, but what that number means for your stress and your options. Fourth, find your version of intensity. At $40,000, maybe that's picking up 1 extra shift a month or selling stuff you don't use. At $65,000, maybe it's negotiating a raise or starting a side. At $100,000, maybe it's cutting 1 major luxury for 6 months and redirecting that cash. The point is acceleration when you can. Here's what ties all of this together. Saving $10,000 isn't really about the $10,000. It's about becoming the kind of person who can save $10,000. It's about changing your identity from someone who's always broke to someone who builds things. And that identity shift changes everything else. When you see yourself as someone who builds wealth, even if you're starting from $400, you make different choices. You stop buying stuff just because it's on sale. You stop saying yes to things that don't match your goals. You stop letting other people's expectations run your spending. You move with intention. And here's the beautiful part. Once you hit that first 10,000, the next 10,000 is easier. Not because your income went up, though maybe it did, but because you built the muscle. You proved to yourself you can do it. You rewired your brain. Think about where you'll be in 3 years if you commit to this. Not just financially, but mentally. Imagine waking up without that low-level money anxiety. Imagine getting a surprise bill and being annoyed but not terrified. Imagine having real options when life throws something at you instead of just scrambling. That's what $10,000 really buys you. Not the money itself, though that's great, but the transformation that happens while you're building it. The confidence, the clarity, the control. Whether you're at 40,000 grinding it out over 3 years, or at 65,000 trying to escape the lifestyle trap, or at 100,000 trying to stop your expenses from eating everything, the path is the same. Know your numbers. Plug your leaks. Set your target. Find your intensity. Here's what I want you to do today. Right now, if you can. Open your banking app or a notes app. Write down where you are with savings. Not where you wish you were, where you actually are. $400, then write your target. Probably $10,000 for most of you watching this. Then write one action you're taking this week. 1, not 10, not a complete overhaul. Just one thing. Transfer $50 to savings. Cancel one subscription. Pack lunch 3 days this week. One action. Then come to the comments and drop your number, where you're starting from. Just the number. Whether it's $400 starting fresh or $20,000 closing in on your next goal, or 0 after life knocked you down. Drop it. When you type it out, you're making a commitment. And when you see other people at different stages, you realize you're not alone. If this helped you see your situation differently, if it gave you a clear next step, hit the like button. It helps more people find this. And if you want more real talk about money and psychology and building wealth without the hype, subscribe. You're not behind. You're not failing. You're exactly where you are. And that's your starting line. What matters is what you do next. Go out there and build something real.
If you like this video, consider subscribing. And don't forget to check out my next video on the screen that's packed with great information to help take you to the next level.